There you go. We are live right now.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to Sharing Faith Pilgrimage Virtual Gathering featuring wonderful guest speakers, their friends, representing various faith traditions today. My name is Sümeyra Tek. I am the moderator today, and also I'm a volunteer with Raindrop Foundation San Antonio. First, I would like to give you a synopsis about what Raindrop is. Raindrop Foundation aims to build mutual understanding, respect, and cooperation at the grassroots level among people of diverse faiths and cultures, with the ultimate intention of contributing to global peace. Founded by Muslim Turkish Americans affiliated with Hizmet movement, we are serving San Antonio community through events and programs that cultivate cross-cultural friendships, promote interfaith dialogue, and encourage joint civic initiatives that meet the needs of our city. Today's event is Sharing the Faith Pilgrimage. It is a continuation of a series of events in collaboration with local parishes, congregations, communities, where everyone is invited to come together, learn from each other, and celebrate significant religious seasons and holidays through meaningful human interaction. And thinking about being not virtual before as today, you can add the delicious meals, breaking bread together, and just enjoying the friendship. Just to name a few events that maybe many of you might have been attended before, we had Seder, Sukkot, Advent, Hanukkah, Ramadan, Yom Kippur, Lent, and many more for years. And today, let us explore the beauty and richness of sacred journeys, pilgrimage in different faith traditions. We have wonderful guests today who are ready to share their personal experiences and perspectives on pilgrimage through the lenses of their respective faith traditions, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Catholicism, and Islam. Thank you for joining us, Rabbi Benjamin Richards from Congregation Agudas Hakim, Olivia Corning, Dr. Rajam Rammurthy, Daniel Lisaraga, and Fulya Sheker. Thank you, you're welcome. And this event is live streaming on YouTube, on Raindrop's YouTube channel now. And thank you all who are joining through YouTube to us. You're welcome to write your comments and questions and whatever you want to share in the chat box on YouTube. And we plan this an hour and 15-minute event. And hopefully we'll do our best to accommodate your questions at the end, if any. So now let me introduce our first speaker, Rabbi Benjamin Richards from Congregation Agudas Hakim. Rabbi Ben Richards was raised in a wonderful community in the beautiful San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. He is the middle of 3 siblings and has an older brother who is a scientist in Seattle and a younger sister who is an artist in Los Angeles. Such a beautiful, colorful family. Rabbi Ben grew up in the conservative movement, attending Hebrew school and Hebrew High at Shomrei Torah Synagogue. Rabbi Ben earned his BA in Judaic Studies at UC San Diego and then spent a year studying at the conservative yeshiva in Jerusalem before completing a 5-year program at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles. Rabbi Ben, it's your turn.
Thank you so much. So I want to talk a little bit about the idea of pilgrimage in the Jewish faith and also my experience with pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is kind of a funny thing in the Jewish faith because it's something that was pretty central to the people many, many years ago when we still had a temple. But since the temple has been destroyed, the second time the temple was destroyed in 70 CE, pilgrimage has somewhat changed and maybe even stopped, depending on your opinion. What it used to be was there were these 3 holidays called the Shalosh Regalim, which translates to more or less the 3 legs. And what would happen is the people would go, so this is a picture of the Holy Temple or what it would look like. This is a model, and the people would go 3 times a year if they could. They would go up to the temple, which is now, near the Western Wall and the Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock now. So there used to be, the temple was there, and the people would come from wherever they lived. They would come to the city of Jerusalem, and then they would go to the temple. And at the temple back in the day, sacrifices were made. and you would bring gifts. And so in our Torah, in our Bible, it says that you're supposed to come 3 times a year at these 3 holiday festivals, and don't come empty-handed, and don't worry about the people attacking you on the way or taking your land while you're gone. It won't happen. You have to have faith in God, but you're supposed to show up for these 3 holidays. And the 3 holidays are Passover, Sukkot, and Shavuot, the festival of the Exodus and the festival of getting the Torah, our holy scripture, and then the festival of booths. And all of these holidays, the people would come on the pilgrimage festivals, and they would bring their sacrifice offerings, and they would spend time together celebrating a festival. So it was communal, and the people would eat together and do business together, and of course pray together. And it was all about getting together as a community and remembering the centrality of the temple, because at this time the temple was really, the idea is that's really where God lives or God dwells. And so even if you live far away, 3 times a year, or at least once a year if you can't make it to all 3, you would hopefully reignite your connection with the people and with God and with the community. And after the temple was destroyed in 70 CE, this stopped because there was nowhere to bring sacrifices to, and we couldn't sacrifice anything because the temple was gone. And so instead, some people nowadays will go, if they can, they'll go to Jerusalem, or they'll go to the Western Wall, which is right by the temple, and they'll try to pray there in big groups, which is kind of cool. I've lived in Israel a few times and gone to see what it looks like, and it's pretty exciting, but it's not the same thing as coming with all the animals and hanging out in community in the same way. So it's a little funny because the idea of pilgrimage in Judaism was something, it's not that it doesn't exist, but that it existed in a very formalized way. And over time, because of the destruction of the temple, it's kind of disappeared in that formal aspect. But for myself, and this is a picture of the Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock, and this is where you can see all these people. So people come and they'll congregate on those 3 festivals. So that is one way of connecting with this sort of idea, this commandment, since the temple has been destroyed. But another way that I understand it, for myself, pilgrimage is really important, but it's a spiritual pilgrimage. And so the ideas that were talked about when they would go to the temple, it was all about reconnecting with the people, reconnecting with community, and reconnecting with God and holiness. And that's something that I still believe the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals, are for. And so, yes, you can go to the land. Some people do that. They try to get to Israel once a year, a few times a year, every few years. And that's kind of a nice way of doing it. But if you take it outside of the physical space, you can also make a spiritual pilgrimage. So every year when I celebrate the 3 festivals, we try to start in a place of disconnect. That's usually where we're living at anyways. And you try to slowly use those days to get yourself into a place of community and connection with God and the people. And so on Passover, for example, or Sukkot, which are both 7 or 8 days, it starts really at a time when maybe it's hard to imagine, where am I? What am I doing? Who are my people? What is my connection to God? And if you take it really seriously, you start in a place of emptiness or lacking, right? Like we're in Egypt metaphorically, we're outside in the desert with no coverings. We don't have our scriptures yet. And then as you live through that holiday, you make a spiritual pilgrimage so that by the end of it, we do have those things. We're no longer lacking. And so it is that like on Passover, we'll start and we'll be like, oh, I'm nowhere near redemption. And if you take it seriously, by the end of the holiday, you can make a spiritual pilgrimage and say, now we are there. Now I'm with community. And what's funny is the 2 of them are 7 days, 8 days. And one of them is really just 24 hours, and yet you stay up all night. And I think the idea there is that you want to take the time to sort of get that soul work in and do that spiritual pilgrimage. And for myself personally, I find it a very powerful thing, because ultimately what started as a physical, tangible representation of pilgrimage, the temple, getting there, bringing the offerings, etc., ultimately has become a spiritual command, a spiritual way of connecting, so that when you go through that holiday, when you do that spiritual assessment, ultimately you end up at this 3rd temple. I would say the 3rd temple, the metaphor of being there with God and the people in a deep and holy way. And so I encourage anybody who feels like, oh, I'd love to do pilgrimage in this way, but I don't feel like I can anymore because the physical representation is gone. Fortunately, a lot of my faith tradition has taken physical representations, and when they no longer exist in that way, has changed them over, transitioned toward a more spiritual, symbolic method. And that's something that I find pretty applicable and interesting. And for myself, at least, I think pilgrimage is essential. It involves the journey. It involves the journey of the human being in a world with all sorts of good things and bad things, and just figuring out who are you and how do you connect with your people? How do you connect with God? How do you connect with everybody in the universe? And it's one of those things, those shalosh regalim, 3 times a year, I'm forced to reassess that connection and look at that relationship and take it seriously. So for me, that's sort of where pilgrimage is at, even if there's no longer a physical place to do pilgrimage.
Thank you, Rabbi Benjamin. It was really amazing, and I really got very, it was so touching for me. Getting together as a community, remember centrality of the temple, and which results in reigniting the connection with people, God, and community. This was amazing. I really like. Thank you so much. And our next speaker, and before next speaker, I'll just ask you, like on the YouTube, you can write your questions to each of the speakers, and if you just define these questions for the speaker, that will be great. Or if you want to ask a question to all speakers, that's still great. We'll try to ask. So our next speaker is Olivia Corning. Olivia Corning entered into her Buddhist practice on September 11, 1979. She was living in the United States at that time, but had returned from a 7-year residence in Japan in 1974. While there, she was nominated and selected as a Who's Who, Outstanding Young Women of America. She has a BS degree in art. Her work in life has been to help others. And I am a true witness for that. She's a longtime dear friend of mine as well. And it's your turn, Olivia.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm a Buddhist, as you heard, and it was actually the Buddha himself that gave an indication as to where he would suggest his followers go on pilgrimage. And of course, this is a religion that has been with us for about 2,500 years. Let's just, round it off there. And what I want to say about that is that we've gone through some transformation. Things have changed, but this is really, it all started with Gautama Buddha and he suggested that we go first to the place where the Buddha was born, and that is in Lumbini, which is actually in Nepal. And then secondly, and actually I wanted to mention that in Lumbini, there is a huge column that was erected by a King Ashoka. And you will hear of him again because he revered the Buddha and actually and his work and the manifestation that happened because of the work. And he actually is the reason we had people go to China. He sent people to China to teach Buddhism. And then of course it went to, then it went everywhere, Korea, Philippines, everywhere. At any rate, so the next place that the Buddha suggested would be to go where he became enlightened, and that's Bodh Gaya. And there he actually was friends with other people who were searching, who were learning. And I think it would be so amazing to see the caves around Bodh Gaya where ascetics and teachers would live. And then the third place would be, let's see, after he became enlightened, he went to look for his friends. And so that's something that the Buddha said, that he would think that that would be a good place to go. And especially because it's our friends that are so dear, and we want to see them healthy, wealthy, and wise. So Sarnoff is where he went to see, to find his friends, the 5 ascetics. And it was there that the Sangha, which means the body of practitioners, was born, because it was there he introduced his friends to the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Paths, and that leading to Nirvana. There is one other place that is mentioned and is especially dear to me, and that is Rajajur. And I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Let's see, let me try that again. Rajir. I think that's it. And the reason is because I am a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra, and the Lotus Sutra was taught here. And in it, it promises salvation for all beings. All beings will be saved. And so I wanted to tell you that the last, actually, there is one other place I'd like to go. And that is, I mean, I'm making myself an imaginary trip here because I'm 72 and I'm not sure that my physical body could do this. But there's a place called Vachelet, and women were accepted as monks on equal footing, because in the Lotus Sutra, it's essentially says that there is no, I mean, there's no one better, man or woman. And let's see, how are we doing on time? I'm afraid I'm a little slow, but I did want to say, as a Nichiren, actually, so Nichiren Daishonin is the Buddha of the 13th century that I follow, which is sort of in line with, of course, the original Buddha. And it's interesting that Rabbi Ben said that his temple was torn down. Well, as it turned out, 12 million people were excommunicated by the Soka Gakkai. And we are now SGI, I'm SGI USA, or you can be SGI France, or whatever it is. But 12 million people were excommunicated, and our essentially temple, the Shohondo, which housed the original Gohonzon, which is actually something written by the Buddha, by Nichiren Daishonin. Okay, so that was, we're not allowed access. What we have learned is that we are the treasure towers. We are the holders of the treasure, and that the enlightenment is within our own lives. In fact, the lotus is one of the few flowers, I don't know any others, but this one, it blooms with the seeds already in it. It does not have to be pollinated. And so we have seeds that are in us. And hopefully seeds of the highest nature. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Olivia. Very deep
Thank you.
feelings and your experience, and I'm praying for you. You will be able to visit the last part. And after all this, turns good with the COVID as well.
Thank you, love.
Okay, our next speaker is Rajam Ramamurthy. Rajam Ramamurthy is Professor Emeritus in the Department of Pediatrics at the UT Health Science Center, where she was faculty for 37 years. She's a founder, member of the Interreligious Council of San Antonio that was founded in 1996. She was named the 2017 Peace Laureate of San Antonio, an honor bestowed by the Peace Center of San Antonio. She is one of the founders of the Arati School of Indian Dance, founded 38 years ago. She is invited to speak on art and healing, spiritual diversity and healing, bringing up a generation for peace. Floor is yours, Rajam. Thank you. Oh, you are muted, Rajam.
Namaste, good evening. Let me first thank the Raindrop Foundation and the organizers for inviting me to share my thoughts on pilgrimage in the Hindu faith. And on this slide, the only thing I would like for you to just remember is this name, Adi Shankara, who was one of the scholars of many, many years ago. So pilgrimage is an important aspect of Hinduism. It's an understanding, an undertaking to see and be seen by the God. It is well known that that there are literally hundreds of images of gods and goddesses conceptualized by the people of Hindu faith. Therefore, the pilgrimage places are also many, many. The core belief of a Hindu at the very, very grassroots level is that there is a God, and I'm thinking of this God in this form with these qualities and attributes. Also recognizing that my neighbor may have a different concept of God, and we are all striving to reach the supreme consciousness through different paths. At the highest level of Hindu philosophy, realizing Brahman, the supreme consciousness, is where everyone and everything is connected, where we are all that supreme consciousness, but we have not realized it. The Hindu believes that the individual soul, or the Atman, is neither created nor destroyed. It has been, it is, and it will be. Actions of the soul, while residing in the body, require that it reap the consequences of those actions in the next life. The same soul in a different body, the concept of karma. Therefore, the Hindu, regardless of his stature, stage, or situation in life, should strive to follow the path of dharma. We are a couple of slides ahead, I think, so we can slow that down. Anyone who makes dharma central to one's life strives to do the right thing. I was taught from the time I could be taught to share, to not cause physical or emotional pain, to treat others as I would like to be treated. And as I matured, the more difficult concepts of compassion and forgiving. I lived in a home where my father followed the path of bhakti. My mother followed the path of bhakti, that is unconditional devotion to God. And my father followed the path of karma, that is service. And I am shaped by this upbringing, and what my desire is to follow the path of knowledge, seeking knowledge. So pilgrimage is recommended to a Hindu where you can fine-tune yourself and be closer to the favorite concept of God, your favorite concept of God. And to visit these places where those temples are, where some story is there, where there is some history about the deities, and so on. The most revered pilgrimage place for the Hindus is what you see in this picture, called Varanasi, Benares, or Kashi sometimes. And it is a very old city, more than 5,000 years old, and is considered one of the 14 oldest cities in the world. And you see the river Ganges there. I have visited this place, and to take a dip in the river Ganges is to wash away many of your difficulties. Next slide, please. And you may have heard of the word Kumbh Mela, the largest gathering of human beings on earth. 150 million people gather for Kumbh Mela, which typically happens once in 12 years. But smaller versions of the Kumbh Mela are happening every year, and the place is rotated. So you see, usually it is at the junction of two rivers, Ganga and Yamuna, Ganges and Yamuna rivers. And in one of the smaller pictures, you can see the tents, miles and miles and miles of these temporary tents. And you can see the women folk, men, everybody gets in there. And you can see that they are worshiping, taking the water in their hands and showing it to the heavens. The other place, the next one, will show you 4 places, and that's called Char 4 Dham locations. 4 holy sacred temples. They are located in the Himalayas. Pilgrimage sites are often located in spots of great natural beauty. You can imagine how beautiful this location must be if one visits this place. And most of these pilgrimage places are on some water location, a river or seashore. And water is a very important part of the ritual in the Hindu tradition. It is supposed to be extremely cleansing. And a dip in the river in the Himalayas, where the temperature is probably in the -degrees Celsius, people do dip in these waters when they go there to worship. The next picture I want to talk about is something in South India, the southernmost tip of India, where there is this gathering every year, maybe about 40, 50 millions of people go to this extremely small shrine on a hill, which is surrounded by 18 other small hills with similar shrines. And the people, it is all men who go on this pilgrimage. And for a month before the pilgrimage starts, they will be fasting, taking only 1 meal a day, and they are celibate. Celibacy is followed during this, and they do prayers every day. And then they take a bundle of whatever they need to travel months together. Nowadays, there are lots of other facilities. They travel by train and bus and cars. But in olden days, they really traveled by foot. And my uncles, I remember in Kerala, doing this fasting and traveling by foot, going to this place of pilgrimage. And you can see the number of people over there. In the next picture, I'm taking you away from India to other places where Hindu pilgrimages happen in a large number. And you're looking at this big statue of a deity named Muruga. And this is in Kuala Lumpur, the Batu Caves in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And this is a huge, big festival every year for this deity. And the Prambanan temple in Indonesia, which was really neglected for the longest time, more than 1,500 years ago. And just very recently in 2017 or 2018, they started the worship in this huge temple complex. And this is supposed to be the second largest Hindu temple complex in the world. And the last thing I want to share with you is other very important pilgrimages in other religions that is located in India. And you can see the Bodhi tree, which was mentioned earlier. This Bodhi tree is under this Buddha got his enlightenment. And this is not that original tree. It is a sapling of the tree, because the original tree, thousands of years ago, it's gone. And pilgrims come to this place. I have visited this place and felt extremely special and peaceful, and then read about the story of Buddha's life and named my daughter Sujata, who was the woman who gave the first meal to Buddha when he came out of his meditation. So that is my connection with that. And then you are seeing on top the Golden Temple of Amritsar, which is a very, very holy, sacred place for the Sikh faith. And the other picture on the hilltop is Pali Thana, which is a sacred place for the Jain religion. I have visited that place also. The pilgrimages to these places are very amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajan. This was amazing, like so many beautiful pictures and so deep, and it's wonderful that you visited all of them, which is great. Wow. And our next speaker is Daniel Lizarraga. Daniel Lizarraga was raised in the Roman Catholic faith in El Paso, Texas. He did his undergraduate work at the University of Notre Dame and later received a master's in theological studies as well as a master's in public affairs. Daniel spent most of his professional career working in faith-based organizations at the local, national, and international levels, including the US Conference of Catholic Bishops and Catholic Relief Services. He currently is a member of the Theology Department faculty at St. Anthony Catholic High School in San Antonio, where he teaches Catholic social teaching and world religions, and we are connected through his classes as well. He invited us one time. Daniel is married and has 4 children. Thank you, Daniel, for accepting our invitation, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, and peace to everyone who is with us this evening. And it's certainly an honor, a pleasure to be here with you and to have the opportunity to pay back in a way, because a number of Sumaira and a number of others joined, as she referred to, my class when we were studying Islam, and were very helpful in giving a very personal testimony and answering questions that the students had. So It's a great pleasure for me to be here and to talk about pilgrimage. And for Catholics, of course, this has been a longstanding tradition of visiting a place, a holy place, to venerate and to show honor to what the significance of that place is in our faith life, in our faith tradition. For the most part, of course, designated pilgrimage sites would be in the Holy Land, of course, as well as in Rome, St. Peter's Basilica. But there are many, many others also that are either at a very local level or on a grander scale, dedicated to certain saints, for example, or to the Blessed Mother. I know that many, well, in the Muslim tradition, Mary is venerated and is spoken about in the Quran. And so there are a number of places where she has appeared. We believe that the tradition holds that Mary has appeared to people and has provided messages. So for Catholics, going on pilgrimage is something that we desire, something that we believe is something that can strengthen us in our faith personally, but also as a church community. And Rabbi Ben spoke very beautifully about those connections with God, with self, and with others that link us not only to the present, to the past, as well as to the future. And I believe that's the beautiful thing about what pilgrimage is, and that it's really an opportunity for transformation, for that spiritual connection to within us to grow closer to God, to ourselves, and to others. Those places, for example, that I mentioned that we journey to, right? That there's movement, that there is a place that we are going to, a destination, and we prepare ourselves for that so that we might be able to really make use, worthy use of our time, so that when we're there, we will be able to engage with in the lives of our fellow community Catholics and with ourselves. There are places, for example, I mentioned this, of course, is in the Holy Land. This is a Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was said to be buried. And it's where we commemorate. Right next to it, within the same facility, is the Mount Calvary, where Jesus was crucified, and where we believe that the veneration of the cross takes place. And then he was brought to the tomb, where he laid for a day and then rose from the dead. And this is the resurrection of Jesus, that we believe his physical life joined his spiritual life again here on earth for a time, and in which he defied death and showed that eternal life is possible for all of us. So it's a very beautiful site. I also mentioned that there are several places that people go to designated places where Mary, the Blessed Mother, has appeared. This one is Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City. And you will see this man who's on his knees. Many, many people, pilgrims, come on their knees, crawling on their knees to the temple, which is, the old one is on the right with the golden dome there. And then the one that you're seeing on the left is the new one, where the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe is kept. And that image is on one of the slides here. And those of you who have been in San Antonio or in Texas are maybe familiar with this image. You may have seen it throughout the West Side, certainly downtown. That's Our Lady of Guadalupe, who appeared to an indigenous peasant named Juan Diego, who's now Saint Juan Diego. And she spoke to him a message about building a church there in that site in Mexico City. But it's a very miraculous image because it speaks to the native people in signs. For example, she is there, and what's around her are the rays of the sun, and she's blocking the sun, which was the god that they worshiped. And so they read it to say that whatever it is that she comes to speak to us is greater than the image of the God that we have here. So there are various other aspects. The celebration of Our Lady of Guadalupe continues on December 12th every year. I've been blessed to make pilgrimage to Our Lady of Guadalupe on a number of occasions and have certainly benefited from that. I think part of the, and this is, you may be asking yourselves, why is this here? When I spoke about the Holy Land, I've also been blessed to go there a number of times. Can we see that picture again, please? With the young ladies. The third time I went, I took my three of my daughters. I have 4 daughters, but I took 3 of them with me, and we visited the holy sites. And we had the opportunity also to visit with various people there. We celebrated the Passover, the Shabbat, with a Jewish family that we knew there, and went to temple with them that night. But then we also went to Palestine, to Bethlehem, where this picture is taken, and a group of young Palestinian young ladies was there, and they taught each other traditional dances. So it was a very beautiful and engaging part of our pilgrimage, which I don't see it as something that was a tour, but it was really something special because it was to engage not just with a sacred image, but to actually engage with people who are there. And I want to leave you with just 4 brief notes that this priest, Father Richard Rohr, said about pilgrimage. First of all, a pilgrim must be a child who can approach everything with an attitude of wonder, awe, and faith. Pray for wonder, awe, desire. Ask God to take away your sophistication and cynicism. Secondly, ask God to take away the restless, anxious heart of the tourist, which always needs to find the new, the more, the curious. Recognize yourself as a pilgrim, as one who has already been found by God. Third, though pilgrimages are good for the spirit, if you can't find the Lord in your hometown, you probably aren't going to find him in Jerusalem. And fourth, we go on pilgrimage so we can go back home again and know that we never need to go on pilgrimage again. Pilgrimage has achieved its purpose when we can see God in our everyday and ordinary lives. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share.
Thank you, Daniel. Amazing, thank you. And now, next speaker is Fulya Şeker. Fulya Şeker is an Australian-born journalist, educator, translator, and voiceover artist. Born and raised in Sydney, interfaith and intercultural work has constituted an important part of her life. In 2007, she was invited to contribute to Australian Broadcasting Corporation publication, Mosaic, Favorite Prayers and Reflections from Inspiring Australians. She also had a degree in communications with a specialization in journalism from Monash University, a graduate diploma of education from Charles Sturt University, and a Master of Arts in Islamic Studies from the University of New England. Fulya is currently a PhD candidate in communications and media. You're welcome, Fulya. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Samira. So the concept of pilgrimage Hajj from the Islamic perspective, we would definitely have to start with it being one of the 5 central pillars that hold up the edifice of Islam. So these are the declaration of faith, the daily prescribed prayers, fasting, the prescribed purifying alms, and the Hajj, or the pilgrimage. And of course, we have a very recognizable image of the Kaaba, the cube, as it were, the house of God in Mecca. So the pilgrimage, both the major, being that which millions of Muslims perform at a given time throughout the year, as the image you will see now shows, is the major pilgrimage. The minor pilgrimage is that which is performed at any other time. So all of these cases of pilgrimage are based on deep devotion to God, deep perception of one's servitude and servanthood to him, and recognition of his divineness and his lordship. It consists of love, action, humility, a deep God consciousness, sacrifice, and overcoming the carnal self. When it came to thinking about what would come to the fore for me in pilgrimage, in the concept of pilgrimage, I personally am interested in the work that space itself does when it comes to the concept of pilgrimage. Now, the relationship between space and the sacred concerns not just a temporal perspective. So we have here rites of pilgrimage performed at certain times, moments of time. But this highlights the importance of the spatial, the aspect that Rabbi, the aspect that Daniel touched upon, about pilgrimage linking us to both the past as well as to the future, is one aspect of this temporality. From the Islamic perspective, God, as the creator of space and time, has invested certain times and spaces with degrees of sacredness. So, experiencing my first pilgrimage, the minor pilgrimage that I undertook, going to this sacred space at a certain time and performing these rites, walking, as it were, in the footsteps of Abraham, who established with his son a lot of these rites. My first impression, coming to a more personal perspective, was one of great surprise, I have to say, because there are a lot of things that we read about, that we learn, that we hear through other people's experience. But there was something that caught me very much by surprise upon my first sight of the Kaaba. Now, this for a Muslim is pivotal, because we are told in a prophetic narration that whatever supplication a believer makes is accepted. But here I found myself in complete astonishment, because I found this cube, this Kaaba that was supposedly inanimate, actually appeared to me to have a soul of its own. So here we have things, the Kaaba itself, as we see in this image, close-up of the door, that we call the stone, the black stone that we need to greet at the beginning of each circumambulation or tawaf around the Kaaba. We begin that with greeting the black stone, a stone. For me, this blew me away, because we had things that were known to be inanimate all of a sudden. For me, that was the feeling that I definitely had. They had a soul unto themselves. So greeting the Kaaba is a very important rite. The farewell circumambulation before one leaves the pilgrimage, is another important ritual. And as I said, greeting the black stone to mark the beginning of the tawaf. So here we have mountains, stones, trees, the felling of which are forbidden within the sacred precincts of Mecca and Medina. So this came as a great surprise to me. And even to this day, there's a great discrepancy personally between the image and the real, or that experience of that particular space. And thereafter, I believed, and I still do, photos and videos even do not do any justice to that sacred presence that I experienced and I felt. Another thing that I really felt poignantly was this idea of calibration. Now, as Muslims, we pray 5 times a day and we face the Kaaba, that very Kaaba to which we face during our prayers, I was there in front of. And we're talking about a matter of meters, not tens of thousands of kilometers in terms of distance. So we calibrate ourselves 5 times every day, and whereby we are tuned and adjusted to this unworldly standard, as it were. But there you are, but at the house of God itself. And to me, it was so significant that this has to be performed by every believer once in a lifetime. That's the requirement. So this tuning, if you like, needs to be performed once in a lifetime. So this is definitely not a place that is a holiday destination. Now, this is akin to what Rabbi Ben described as a space of emptiness, physically empty or desolate perhaps, but teeming spiritually. Because this is not a place where a person goes for a holiday, but this is definitely a place that I felt this, like the places where divine revelation descends, like Mount Sinai and Mecca, is not of this world. That's what I felt to my core. It's a day, it's a rehearsal for the day of gathering, the hereafter. It is barren, or as I said, seemingly so. So this is definitely a place, a space where sacrifice and submission comes into play, as is represented by the submission of Abraham. And given our current situation, now, plagues, politics, armed conflict have disrupted the pilgrimage for Muslims throughout Islamic history, but not since 1932 has the Hajj been cancelled. So for us, and with a heavy heart, I talk about pilgrimage, because millions of Muslims who perform the pilgrimage will be unable to go to this year and perform the pilgrimage. So I would like to just call out to them, and this festival of sacrifice, or Eid al-Adha, that will be this Friday actually, and this is the reason I believe why Raindrop organised this event around this particular time, which honours the willingness of the submission of Abraham and the devotion of Abraham. So I would like to end my words with just a thought in these unprecedented times, wishing Muslims a happy Eid this Friday when they are in their homes, in retreat as it were. Maybe in many ways a spiritual retreat, but definitely not the gatherings and the pilgrimage and the rites that we have. So I would wish our dear Muslim friends, their families and loved ones, peace, harmony, happiness, good health and prosperity on this auspicious occasion of Eid. Happy Eid al-Adha to them all. May God bless them all and everyone at home during these times. May God bless them and indeed all humanity with good health, happiness and deliverance from this pandemic in honor of this festival of sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Fulya. And I'll ask all our guests come back. This was amazing, hearing from all of you. Such deep, so much history, years of experiences. It was wonderful. Thank you. And also we still have time. We made it, which is great. So we have a couple of questions in the chat box. And I think these questions are for all of you. So can I just ask you to unmute yourself? And so I'll just go over some questions. So one of the questions is pilgrimage mandatory or recommended in different faith traditions? So do you want to start? Who? Let's say Rabbi, just same order.
Sure. Is pilgrimage recommended or mandatory? Well, so in my faith tradition, at least, it's not like the actual physical, tangible pilgrimage isn't possible at this time because the temple is gone. But I would say a spiritual pilgrimage, sure, is definitely recommended.
Definitely. Great. Olivia? Would you like to say?
I agree. Spiritual pilgrimage is really what we're left with right now. That and, you know, what holds us together. So, yeah.
Great. So would you like to add? Rajan?
I am feeling so happy that this is happening, because all the pictures I've seen, the only place I have not been to is to Mecca, to the Kaaba, and I have been to Jerusalem. I have seen the temple. And every place I visited, I remember the story and the history and the people I know who are of that faith, and the tremendous feeling you have when you are looking at the place where Jesus Christ was born. You're standing there, you know, and you feel such a minute part of this universe where, you know, we are all. And this privilege of being able to be in certain places in our lifetime. I have been to the Shrine of Guadalupe. I have visited Bodh Gaya. I've been to Jerusalem. And I'm not sure if people of other faith are can go to the Kaaba, Fulia?
Hello.
Only Muslims are allowed to enter the sacred precinct.
Hmm.
That's correct.
I see. There are many temples in India where that is the case. You know, only Hindus are allowed.
Great. Okay, also there's a comment for Daniel. They say the last quotes was amazing. If you can share this word again as a comment, I would be very happy. So just sharing that. And also there's another one. I think Fulia also mentioned about this, but how did COVID affected the pilgrimage sites and practices? How does it, you know, at this time? Do you wanna, does anyone want to answer this question? You're good to answer, yeah.
Well, I can going back in terms of the pilgrimage being encouraged, recommended and encouraged, but in it, like I said, there are many local pilgrimage destinations. For example, here in San Antonio, the missions, and in particular as well, the Basilica of the Little Flower, which is on the west side, are designated pilgrimage sites. So you don't have to leave, often you don't have to go very far to find an official designated pilgrimage place. Each diocese, each local place usually has at least one, so people can go there. But of course, COVID does affect things in some, it has had a huge impact with so many organized pilgrimages being canceled to the Holy Land, to Rome, to the other holy sites. But you know, as has been mentioned here, the spiritual pilgrimages can be made from your very home, and that's the beautiful thing about having faith.
Yeah. Thank you. Whoever, do you want to add something? Anyone else? Okay, I think we are just on time. 8. So I would like to thank to all our speakers, and one more time for the amazing job you did. You know, especially at this time of COVID and pandemic, maybe the first time in history, you know, we are kind of limited, cannot visit our pilgrimage sites, or even, you know, cannot congregate, which is really a need, and, you know, we are used to do that. So it's a kind of important at this time. It's a blessing that we all came together here, talked about, and you took us all those spiritual journeys, you shared your experiences. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
And so I believe this event holds a great importance at this time even more. And it is very important for us to pray all together as all faiths for the people of the world who are suffering from this coronavirus. And I will ask Fulya Şeker again one more time to do the closing with an interfaith prayer. She is also a member of the board of directors for Indra Foundation San Antonio that I forgot to mention. Fulya Hocam, thank you. And do you want to just do the closing prayer? And we'll pray.
Thank you, Sumaira. Lord of mercy, we pray to you now to guide all of us to a world where the fear of one another no longer darkens our hearts and minds. You are the source of peace, and all peace comes from you. Grant us patience, endurance, and courage so that we may work together toward achieving lasting peace and healing. O God, all goodness is in your hands, coming from you and returning to you. We ask you by the light of your countenance, by which the heaven and the earth become illuminated, to bless us with your light, your wisdom, and your compassion. O God, You who have nourished us in famine and provided us with plenty, remove from us pestilence and free us from severe and long-lasting disease. Help us. Until now, your mercy has aided us and your kindness has not abandoned us. Therefore, we plead and beseech you to heal us, O Lord, and we will be healed. Save us, and we will be saved, for you are our glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Fulya Hocam, and thank you everyone again, and thank you everyone who are on YouTube watching us. Have a wonderful evening, and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Raindrop.
Bye-bye. Thank you.